Today, there are 2 new confirmed cases of Covid-19 to report in New Zealand. The people who have tested positive are a couple who returned to New Zealand from India and arrived on the 5th of June. Both are in their 20s. They also have an infant who has not been tested due to the child's age, and we are still to determine whether the child may be considered a case as well, in which case if they're not tested, if they are symptomatic, or if we think about the exposure, we may classify the child as a probable case. Yesterday, our laboratories completed 7,707 tests for Covid-19. Our total number of tests to date is thus 335,167. Now, yesterday's testing numbers represent our second highest day of testing since we began testing, and I think this underscores the high capacity we have in our laboratories, that we can stand up rapidly if we need to, and we can do over 12,000 tests per day across the country if needed. So returning to the couple who have tested positive, they did not have any symptoms of Covid-19. There were health and welfare checks conducted every day, and those did not uncover any symptoms or issues. They were tested as part of the day 12 swabbing process on Thursday at the facility they are in Auckland, and it was the positive tests that were returned from that swabbing that we're reporting today. This morning, the couple and their child have been transferred from the hotel where they have been, the Grand Millennium, to the Jet Park Quarantine Hotel at Auckland. Everyone who is at the Grand Millennium has or will be today tested as part of the day 3 and day 12 testing that is now routine at all facilities. By the end of today, we expect to confirm that we have tested everyone from the flight that the couple were on, because they will have all gone into a managed isolation facility as well, and those who have been at the hotel where they were at as well. Auckland Regional Public Health is currently conducting interviews with the couple, and that will identify any potential other contacts who will be followed up immediately after that process is completed. Just a good time to remind everybody that we're always expecting to get new cases at our borders as Kiwis return home from overseas. And I guess a comment here is we had several weeks where we didn't get any cases at the border, and now we are. And I'd like to reflect on the reasons for that. First of all, we are seeing an increasing number of Kiwis returning to the country from around the globe. The second is, just to reiterate the point that I have made, there is still a global pandemic raging offshore, and only overnight the Director General of the World Health Organization noted that the global pandemic is accelerating, with Thursday this week being over 150,000 new cases worldwide. So there is an increased likelihood we will see Kiwis coming back, especially from countries where there are higher rates of infection, like India. We also, earlier in the week, of course, had those 2 Kiwis who had returned from the UK, where they've got higher rates of infection. So this explains why we are now detecting these cases at the border. The couple we're reporting on today flew back on a repatriation flight, so a dedicated flight from Delhi. And the flight number is AI, that's Air India 1306. It's one of a number of similar flights that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade has organised over the last few months to help repatriate Kiwis who wish to come home. And tens of thousands of New Zealanders have returned to our shores since the beginning of this pandemic. And they are, of course, since the 9th of April, undergoing that mandatory managed isolation at the border, and that has been and remains our strongest defence to prevent cases coming back into the country. And just a reminder that before this week, we'd had 35 cases of Covid-19 identified among people returning and into managed isolation, and that was before the introduction of routine testing of everybody, even those asymptomatic. So prior to that, anyone who was symptomatic when they arrived, who developed symptoms, were tested and managed, and still are, in our dedicated quarantine facility. Of course, since June the 9th, we have moved to introduce the routine testing at days 3 and day 12 at all facilities as an additional safety net, and it's encouraging to see that that system is working as demonstrated by today's cases that were asymptomatic. Now, the case, the interview of the cases may well uncover a little bit more about where this couple are at in terms of the cycle of infection. It may well be that they had the infection and it had passed before they left India, and that these are late, what we might call late positive results. And we have seen this before in cases here in New Zealand, and it's been reported around the globe. I do want to reiterate there is not now, nor there has ever been, stigma around having COVID-19. It is a virus that does not discriminate. We have seen world leaders and senior public health and medical people around the globe be infected with this virus. We're in the fortunate position in this country of having had so few cases that those we do have receive a lot of attention. Please remember, it could be your relative mother, brother, or sister, or father, or it could be a friend who has returned home and who is sitting in a hotel room with a positive result for the virus. Please be compassionate and kind. We are in this together. And a final word, yes, we have gone back and ensured that every person who has left a managed isolation facility since the 9th of June has been tested for COVID-19, either before they left or subsequently. And for those, and there are over 2,000 of these people that we have a test result back, they have all been negative, and we are just pending a few hundred test results that we're still waiting on. So again, this is just part of our very broad precautionary sweep we are taking around the cases that we've had over the last few days.